You're in bed. The room is quiet, but your mind is loud. It replays what you said earlier. It predicts what could happen tomorrow. It runs through 10 versions of the same conversation, searching for the one that guarantees safety. You tell yourself you're being responsible. You tell yourself you're preparing. But you're not preparing, you're pacing. Overthinking isn't deep thinking. It's fear trying to look responsible. Because notice what you're really chasing in that loop. Not truth, not wisdom. Certainty, a guarantee that nothing will go wrong. A guarantee that you won't regret your choice. A guarantee that you won't be judged. A guarantee that you won't lose something you can't replace. And that guarantee does not exist. So your mind does what fear always does. It multiplies scenarios. It rehearses pain. It tries to solve the future with imagination, as if suffering early will protect you later. But it never works. It only drains you. It turns your life into a mental waiting room where nothing begins until you feel ready, and you never feel ready. This video is not going to tell you to think positive. That's weak medicine for a serious problem. This is about learning to lead your mind when it demands certainty. Learning the Stoic way to separate what you control from what you don't, to accept uncertainty without collapsing, and to choose reason when emotional chaos tries to take the wheel. Your mind isn't searching for truth, it's searching for safety. And the moment you see that, you stop treating the spiral as intelligence. You start treating it as what it is. Fear in disguise. Now we need to expose what overthinking actually does for you. Why it feels useful even when it's destroying your peace. Overthinking gives you a false sense of control. That's its real function. It doesn't solve the problem. It sedates you with the feeling that you're doing something. It feels like preparation, but it produces no movement. You can think for 2 hours, 3 hours, 10 hours, and at the end you have the same reality you started with. No action taken, no conversation had, no decision made. Just a mind that's tired and a body that feels like it ran miles without leaving the room. This is why it's so deceptive. Overthinking mimics responsibility. It tells you, if I keep analyzing, I'm being careful. If I keep replaying, I'm learning. If I keep forecasting, I'm preventing mistakes. But look at the evidence. How many times has your mind solved the future, and then the future arrived with a different shape anyway? Overthinking replaces action with simulation. It creates a private theater where you suffer every possible outcome, hoping that suffering now will make you stronger later. But it doesn't make you stronger. It makes you hesitant. It trains you to associate uncertainty with danger. It teaches your nervous system that you must understand everything before you move. And that's why you feel trapped. Because life requires movement. Not perfect movement. Movement. The kind you make with incomplete information, with a calm spine, with the courage to accept that some things are out of your control. Here's the cruel part. When you overthink, you don't solve the problem, you just suffer it repeatedly. You pay for the same fear again and again, like a debt you keep refinancing but never closing. So the question becomes simple and uncomfortable. Is your thinking leading to action, or is it avoiding action? If thinking doesn't lead to action, it's not wisdom, it's avoidance. And once you admit that, you're ready for the next step. Because overthinking is never random. It always hides a fear. The spiral has a reason. And if we name the fear, you stop being hypnotized by the thoughts. Overthinking is fear wearing the mask of intelligence. The mind talks fast, so you don't notice what it's protecting. So let's name what you're actually afraid of, because once the fear is exposed, the spiral loses its authority. The first fear is regret. What if I choose wrong? What if I miss the better option? What if I look back and hate myself for this decision? Regret is terrifying because it feels permanent. Your mind tries to prevent it by exhausting every possibility. But the truth is, you cannot eliminate regret by thinking harder. You can only reduce it by choosing with virtue, then accepting the outcome like an adult. The second fear is judgment. What will this make me look like? What will they think? Will I seem weak? Will I seem foolish? Will I lose respect? This is why people overthink messages, timing, tone, every detail. They're not optimizing communication. They're trying to control perception. They're trying to avoid the pain of being misread. And when you seek that kind of safety, you become a servant to other people's opinions. The third fear is loss. What if I can't handle the outcome? What if I fail? What if I lose money, time, reputation, love? Your mind treats loss like a disaster, so it tries to build a perfect plan that guarantees protection, but guarantees are not available in real life. So the plan grows and grows, and you keep delaying the moment of action because action means exposure. Here's the key insight. Overthinking is an attempt to eliminate uncertainty before living. You are trying to buy certainty with thought. You are trying to control the future with imagination, and the price you pay is the present. Sleep, peace, confidence, momentum, all sacrificed to a mind that refuses to move without a guarantee. Stoicism doesn't remove uncertainty. It removes your dependence on it. And that's where the real solution starts, not by stopping thoughts, but by changing what you agree with. Because overthinking begins the moment you treat the first fearful story your mind tells as if it were a fact. Your mind receives an impression. A thought arrives. This could go wrong. They might reject you. You might fail. You might regret it. And most people accept that thought like a verdict. They don't question it. They don't test it. They don't separate possibility from reality. They assent to it instantly, and the spiral begins. This is the Stoic diagnosis. Overthinking is not a thinking problem, it's an assent problem. You believe the first story your mind tells, and then you build a whole city around it. One fearful impression becomes 10 scenarios, then 50. Your mind multiplies outcomes to create the feeling of preparation. But what it's really doing is trying to protect you from discomfort. It's trying to keep you inside the illusion that if you think enough, you won't have to face uncertainty. The Stoics were strict about this. You can't stop impressions from arriving, but you can stop obeying them. Marcus Aurelius reminds himself of this discipline in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 8, paragraph 47. He focuses on what is in front of him and refuses to add imagined suffering. That's the mistake overthinking always makes. It adds. It adds future pain to the present moment. It adds imaginary judgments to real silence. It adds a disaster story to a simple uncertainty. Epictetus teaches the same foundation in Discourses of Epictetus, Book 1, when he explains that impressions are not facts, they are invitations, and your job is to decide whether to accept them. When you forget that, your mind becomes a tyrant. When you remember it, your mind becomes a tool. So the first move is simple and it's decisive. When the fearful thought appears, you do not argue with it. You do not chase it. You do not add to it. You pause and you label it. This is an impression, not a prophecy. Then you ask the question that breaks the spell. Is this within my control? And that question takes you directly to the turning point, the dichotomy of control, the split that moves the problem into the right category, so your mind stops trying to control the future and starts controlling what it actually can. Here's the split that ends the spiral, not because it makes the future safe, but because it puts your mind back in the right job. Overthinking happens when you treat an outcome as if it were your responsibility. You try to control timing, reactions, results, luck, the way the story unfolds. And because you can't control those things, your mind keeps spinning, looking for a door that isn't there. So you do a control audit. Quick, brutal, honest. What is not yours? The outcome, the exact result, whether they say yes or no, whether you succeed on the first try, whether life throws a surprise, other people's reactions, timing, random events, all real, all important, but not commandable. What is yours? The next step, the effort you invest, the preparation you choose, the courage to act, the restraint to stop rehearsing, the honesty to accept uncertainty, your character while you do the thing. That is your territory. That is where your power lives. Now apply the rule. When you can't control the outcome, control the process. This is what your mind has been refusing to accept. It wants certainty about the end before it begins. Stoicism says no. You begin with virtue. You begin with the right action. You begin with the smallest step that moves reality. And you accept that the rest belongs to fate. Clarity isn't knowing the future. It's knowing your next move. So instead of asking, "What's the perfect decision?" you ask, "What is the next right action I can take right now?" It might be sending one message, making one call, writing one page, taking one walk, starting one workout, updating one resume, researching for 15 minutes and then choosing. Anything that moves the world, not just your thoughts. And the moment you do that, the spiral loses fuel. Because overthinking feeds on stalling. It needs you frozen. It needs you waiting for permission. Action breaks the spell. But here's the part your mind will resist. Even if you control the process, you still have to live with uncertainty. You still have to tolerate not knowing. That's why we need the next Stoic weapon, not more thinking. Acceptance. The kind of acceptance that turns uncertainty from a threat into training. Your mind keeps overthinking because it is trying to avoid one thing, the feeling of uncertainty. It treats not knowing as danger. It treats exposure as risk. It treats action as something you should only take when you have a guarantee. That is why you delay. That is why you rehearse. That is why you keep opening the same decision like a wound, hoping the next thought will finally make it safe to move. Stoicism offers a harder medicine. It tells you the guarantee you want is not coming, and you don't need it. Uncertainty is not a flaw in life. It is a feature of life. The future is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to be met. And the person who waits for certainty postpones their own life, because certainty is a currency the world rarely gives. This is where amor fati becomes practical. Accepting fate does not mean giving up. It means you stop demanding that reality provide comfort before you act with virtue. It means you stop negotiating with uncertainty like it owes you reassurance. You look at the discomfort and you say, "Good, I can practice courage here." Because uncertainty is the gym of courage. You don't build courage when everything is guaranteed. You build it when the outcome is unknown and you choose the right action anyway. So when your mind says, "What if it goes wrong?" you answer like a friend pulling you back from the edge. It might go wrong, and I will handle it with character. When your mind says, "What if I regret it?" you answer, "I will choose by values, not by fear." When your mind says, "What if they judge me?" you answer, "Their judgment is not my responsibility." And notice the shift. You stop trying to control the world to feel safe. You start making yourself strong enough to face the world. You don't need a guarantee. You need a spine. And once you accept that, you can apply reason in a simple way, right in the moment the spiral starts. Not with complex analysis, but with a fast reset that converts fear into action. 30 seconds. That's all it takes to stop obeying the loop. Here is the 30-second Stoic reset. Use it the moment you catch yourself spiraling, not when you feel calm, when you feel trapped. First, name the fear in one sentence. Not the thought, the fear underneath it. Be direct. "I'm afraid I'll regret this. I'm afraid I'll look foolish. I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid I'll lose something." One sentence. No poetry. Fear loses power when it is named. Second, reduce it to what is controllable. Do the audit again, quickly. I can't control the outcome. I can control my next step. I can control my preparation. I can control my effort. I can control my character if it goes wrong. This is where your mind stops trying to govern fate and starts governing itself. Third, choose the smallest action that moves reality. Not the perfect plan. A real move, a message, a call, a written paragraph, a calendar block, a first workout, a 5-minute start. The action must be small enough that your fear can't argue with it. Small actions slip past the tyrant. And here is the cue you need to remember when your mind tries to drag you back. If I'm still thinking, I'm avoiding. Because the moment you've named the fear, audited control, and chosen the next step, any extra thinking is usually just the same old craving for certainty. It's the mind trying to reopen the case, and you close it by acting. A small action is stronger than a perfect plan. Now we go one level deeper. How do Stoics decide without overthinking? How do they choose when information is incomplete? How do they avoid reopening decisions 100 times? That requires a decision framework, not motivation. Stoics don't decide by predicted comfort, they decide by values. That's the first correction. Overthinking asks, which choice will make me feel safest? Stoicism asks, which choice is most aligned with virtue? Because comfort is unstable. It changes with mood, with fear, with imagination. Virtue is steadier. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. If your choice honors those, you can accept the outcome without self-contempt. So here's the decision framework that ends the endless reopening. First, you decide what kind of decision this is. Reversible or irreversible. A reversible decision is one you can adjust later. Most decisions are reversible. Which routine to start? Which message to send? Which strategy to try for a month? Overthinking treats these like life sentences. Stoicism treats them like experiments. You choose the best option with the information you have, then you act, and you correct course if needed. An irreversible decision is rarer: moving countries, ending a marriage, signing a major contract. These deserve more thought, but not infinite thought. Even here, reason needs limits. So you set a deadline, a day, a week, a date on the calendar, because a mind without a deadline will create one by collapsing into anxiety. Second, you choose by principle, not by prediction. Ask one question that clarifies everything. Which option makes me more disciplined, more honest, more courageous? Not which option avoids discomfort. Discomfort is not evidence of wrongness. It's often evidence of growth. Third, once you decide, you close the door. You don't keep visiting the alternate universe. You don't keep torturing yourself with what-ifs. You commit to doing your part well, and you let fate handle the rest. Reopening decisions is a form of self-harm disguised as responsibility. Overthinking is infinite. Virtue is decisive. Now we prove it in real life, where the spiral feels strongest. Relationships, money and work, health and fitness. 3 common traps, 3 exits. And when you see how simple the exit is, you'll stop respecting your spiral. You don't break overthinking by understanding it. You break it by using a different move in the exact moment it tries to take over. So let's put this into the 3 places where the spiral usually feels personal, urgent, and loud. First, relationships. You stare at the screen. Should I text? What if I look needy? What if they ignore me? What if I ruin it? Your mind is not searching for the right message. It's searching for certainty about how they'll respond. That's the fear. Fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish, fear of losing control. So you do the reset. Name the fear. I'm afraid of being rejected. Control audit. I can't control their reply. I can control my honesty and my restraint. Next step. Send one clean message or choose silence and move your life forward. Either way, you stop rehearsing. You act with dignity. And you accept the outcome. If they respond well, fine. If they don't, you have information, not a catastrophe. Second, money and work. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if I waste time? What if I embarrass myself? Overthinking here is usually fear of exposure. If you take action, you might discover your limits. And the mind hates that. It wants to stay in planning because planning feels like progress without risk, so you name it. I'm afraid of failing, audit control. I can't control instant success. I can control effort, learning, consistency. Next step, apply for one job, make one call, publish one piece, start one small project. Action is the only teacher. And once you move, your mind stops inventing disasters because reality starts giving you facts. Third, health and fitness. This is the most common trap. What's the perfect plan? What's the best routine? What's the ideal diet? And because you can't find perfection, you never start. Overthinking becomes procrastination in a lab coat, so you name it. I'm afraid of starting and not being consistent. Audit control. I can't control perfect motivation. I can control a simple routine today. Next step. One workout, one walk, one meal choice, 1 hour of sleep earlier. Small actions build identity. Identity kills the spiral. Now notice the pattern. In every case, the spiral is trying to buy safety with thought. Stoicism refuses the purchase. It replaces it with discipline. You name the fear, you place it into the right category, and you move. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. You stop becoming a planner who lives in the future. You become a practitioner who lives in the present. That's the identity shift. The moment you stop worshipping certainty and start trusting character. You've been living like a planner. Not because you're lazy, but because planning feels like safety. It lets you believe you're in control without having to step into uncertainty. It lets you stay smart, stay prepared, stay responsible, while avoiding the one thing that actually builds confidence: exposure. A planner lives in a world of almost ready, almost certain, almost prepared. And over time, that almost becomes a prison. Because life doesn't reward the best plan. Life rewards the person who can act with incomplete information and still remain steady. Stoicism turns you into a practitioner. A practitioner doesn't worship certainty. He respects it, but he doesn't require it. He knows the mind will always demand more information, more guarantees, more rehearsal. And he knows that demand is not wisdom. It's fear trying to delay reality. So the practitioner lives by a different sentence. I don't need to know the outcome to choose the right action. That is not blind confidence. It is moral confidence. Confidence rooted in character. If the outcome is good, he stays humble. If the outcome is bad, he stays composed. Because his sense of worth is not chained to prediction. It's anchored to virtue, effort, courage, discipline, restraint. And this is why the spiral weakens. Overthinking loses its role when you stop treating uncertainty as a crisis. When you accept that not knowing is normal. When you train yourself to move anyway. Your mind becomes quieter, not because you forced it, but because it's no longer needed as a shield. Now you practice it, or you keep paying in anxiety. Because the old habit will return the next time you're tired, the next time something matters, the next time you feel exposed. That's why we close this with a challenge that turns this into training, not entertainment. Here's the silent agreement you make with yourself before you close this video. You will stop calling fear thinking. You will stop worshipping certainty. You will stop sacrificing your peace to a mind that refuses to move. You cannot control the future. You can control your character in the present, and that is enough. So here's the 7-day practice. Simple, strict, and designed to break the spiral through action. For 7 days, make one decision per day and do not reopen it. Not because you're stubborn, but because you're training sovereignty. Choose with reason, then commit. When the mind returns with what-ifs, you label it impression, not prophecy. Then you return to your next step. For 7 days, the moment you catch yourself spiraling, you do one small action that moves reality. Name the fear in one sentence. Audit control. Choose the smallest step. Then act. The action must be real, not research, not more planning disguised as progress. A message sent, a page written, a walk taken, a task started, a commitment placed on the calendar. And if you fail one day, you don't dramatize it. You start again the next day. This isn't about perfection. It's about proving to your nervous system that uncertainty is survivable and that courage is a choice you can repeat. By the end of the week, you won't magically control life, but you will feel something you've been missing. Momentum, quiet confidence, mental space, because the spiral feeds on delay and you starved it with action. Overthinking is fear in disguise. Remove the disguise and act. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe for more Stoic insights and watch the latest videos.